Hey everybody, this video is just to show you a quick rundown of the idea of doing the paper proposal. I said in a previous email that this is basically like writing an introduction to a longer paper. That is almost essentially what it is. You will be taking this, if you like, and expanding it later at the end of the semester into a longer paper. You're welcome to change your topic, but the idea here is to allow you to scaffold the assignment. So you take the paper proposal and you would make edits that I suggest after it's graded, and then later in the end of the semester, if you are going to recycle it as your same topic for your final paper in December, you would just use it as your introduction. Now, I'm going to show you a few things in that module on D2L so you know all the tools, so you are aware of all the tools that are there for you to use for this assignment. So in your course, when you click on content and you scroll down to paper proposals, here is all the information that you need. Now, the very first one is the assignment itself. I have that open in a different tab there. So this tells you what you have to do, what is needed. It tells you the word count, 250 to 300 words. It tells you that it needs to be in MLA formatting, just the basic information. And then I also have kind of a breakdown of what introductions to papers look like. And, e.g., this is also what a paper proposal looks like. By the way, you may have done one of these before, and it might have been called something else. Some fields call these abstracts. Also, this is very similar to what you would be doing in grant writing. You would also write sort of similar, in a similar concept, sometimes for cover letters to jobs or academic programs. Now, the first section of a paper proposal, or if it's easier for you to think of it that way, as an introduction to a paper, we often have a sort of narrative section. And that's where maybe you are connecting it to something personal or to something in real life, like current events. And you're using it as an example. You then connect that to the topic itself that you are talking about. And then you talk about like what your actual argument is. All of that leads into a thesis statement. Now, your paper proposals have to be on at least one of the assigned readings in this class. You're allowed to use more than one, like if you were doing a sort of compare contrast. I don't recommend doing more than 3 because you don't have enough room to do a good job elaborating on a large quantity of readings and the parallels in them. Now, let me show you a couple more things in that module with all your tools that you're welcome to use for your paper proposal. You have a sample paper proposal. I'm going to that in just 1 second. I also made this about a year ago because for some reason this seems overwhelming. And I think that sometimes that's because, when I say it's like an introduction to a paper, sometimes we don't always start by writing the introduction when we're writing a full-length paper. Sometimes we start filling in pieces of information from research that we've done, right? So here is a suggested process flow for writing this. The very first thing that you have to do is you have to pick a topic. You can't do anything else at all. It's impossible to do anything else at all until you decide on a topic. If you need help picking a topic, you should email me and give me at least 1 or 2 readings that interested you and why. That way I can pitch some ideas to you. So I'm not trying to suggest ideas to you from readings that you just like, you're like, I don't get it. I didn't really click with that. Um, the topic is the most imperative thing. And just like you do in your visual responses, this is my next suggestion, is to sketch a picture of your idea or topic. This can help you in a sort of spatial memory way. This is the whole concept behind your visual response assignment too, by the way. Help you in a spatial memory way, kind of like totally understand, or at least better understand, where it is you're wanting to go with that idea. Now, that doesn't have to be exactly the way you have been illustrating things like stick figures or blobs or whatever in visual responses. This could also look like flowcharts or diagrams. We've been working on one of those in another one of my classes to better understand Frankenstein and the theme of the mother as we go along. So, you know, that's not a required part. It's not something you turn in with this, but sometimes if you're just taking 5 minutes to do it for yourself, it can help you weed out the parts about the idea that aren't making any sense to you. So you also want to turn that topic into a thesis statement. Now, and it's not probably not going to be a totally perfect thesis statement until you write the rest of the introduction above it. But you want it to look like something like a thesis statement so you can better produce that content than, those other points I mentioned in the breakdown of an introduction or proposal. Yeah, you'll know where to start your narrative process and so on. Now, you want to actually write your proposal, and the way you would do that is by thinking about what the whole full-length paper might look like in general. Now, regarding that, um, remember, you don't have to reuse this if you decide you're not writing your final paper in the end of the semester on this topic. But remember that generally papers follow a 5-part formula. There are always all these movements or whatever you want to call them to be a little looser and freer with that concept, but the formula is always still there, because if it's not, there's often no organization to what you have written. So for your thesis statement, if that's something you struggle with totally piecing together, maybe you have a really great idea, but you just can't quite articulate the thesis statement itself, you are allowed to use this thesis generator tool that I have right here. Now, this is not like the AI writing tools. I mean, it's similar, but it doesn't just create ideas for you. You have to put your idea in it. And basically, what it's doing is showing you, by pushing you to make 3 points of discussion about that topic, for example. It's showing you ways it could be worded with different clauses. It's taking your idea and just moving it around so you can see what the best way to word it is. So use that tool if you need it to give you a good foundation for making the thesis statement in your paper proposal. Now, I also have this video right here. This is about answering the question, so what? In writing, no matter what class it is, generally, unless you have strictly been told that you are writing some sort of summary, you don't want to write just a summary of something. There has to be something analytic about it. And that means it tells us what the value of your idea is. So it's answering the question, so what? So what? Why does this matter? Why should the reader care? Your best option is often to point to something in the real world. Like, this is an example of why this illuminates issues in the matters of A, B, or C. It's just going to depend on the context of what you're writing about as far as that goes. So the sample paper is the last thing I want to show you. To see you've already done this in other classes. It's just that maybe you've never done it under this name. It's just like writing a one-page response to something, except we're treating this like a full introduction to a larger paper. So remember, it has to be MLA formatting. That means we have your last name and the page number inserted. And then you have 4 lines of information. This is all double spaced. So your name, my name, the course name. This is a different course's name, of course, because it's a sample paper. And the general rule of thumb in the date is that we put the due date of whatever that document happens to be. And then please give it an original title. Imagine that this is something more formal, like a grant, like something out in the real world. You want to catch someone's attention, and using an original title would certainly help you out. If you call it paper proposal, it's not going to stand out in a pile of applications, right? So be sure you give your work an original title. This title was lengthier, and they chose to they chose to write their title in the form of a question. It doesn't have to be a question. This was just the route this person chose. All right. So this is a compare contrast sort of topic, and they took something from pop culture and they are comparing it to a short story from this is an American literature class. So they're comparing it to that short story. And they're taking the elements of drug addiction and mental illness. In this case, it's postpartum depression from the short story. And they're combining those two to talk about the parallels of mental health issues in general in culture. So here we have a little bit of narrative information. In this case, the narrative style is giving us background information about the album Master of Puppets. And there are probably a lot of you who are Stranger Things fans. This person wrote this before Stranger Things made Metallica cool again. So they take that and then they give us a little background information on that short story. Now see, sometimes that could cross the boundary of being summary information, but look how brief they kept that. That's all they needed to say so the reader knows what's going on. Okay, and now we're in the middle. We're at that part where we're starting to talk about the actual topic. And in this case, that means we're talking about drugs and depression share a similar psychological space regarding control of consciousness, of course, but they are vastly different when their respective wholes are considered. Then this person raises a question. I know it's really subjective in writing if you're allowed to use a question or not. This person is using it in an all right form in this proposal because they didn't end with a question. They explain what they will be answering to attempt to answer that question. And so they have a thesis statement here in the end. After that question acts as a springboard for them to present the thesis statement. Okay, so that is it for this video. I don't want it to be any longer. So just let me know if you are still feeling stuck or confused and send me an email so I can help you out. Thanks.